So I call this our bingo card, and what we've done here, we've taken sort of those 6 phases and identified some of the critical steps in each one of those phases. So the first one under planning and feasibility, I would say space needs assessment. So we get very granular with this. We look at what doctors, what specialties, what volumes, what CPT codes, what payer mix, and we put that into our analysis, and we come up with a space needs assessment, and then we work hand in hand with your architect on how we design the actual center based on that. Again, we want to be thinking about not just today, but where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Not overbuilding, but if you do need to expand, how do we do that realistically? 5-year financial forecasting, we want you to be able to make data-driven decisions on whether this is a go or no-go decision to start your surgery center, right? So when we complete our feasibility analysis, you will have a business plan and a realistic game plan on whether it makes sense to move forward or not. There are times where we have done these analyses and it just doesn't make sense to move forward, and then we work with those physicians to find an alternative, to maybe identify another surgery center in their market, or maybe creating an office-based surgical suite that may be a better solution for them. And then the last is really the capitalization approach, whether it's tenant improvement costs, doing a greenfield development site, all of your equipment, things like that. Next phase, organization formation. How do you set up your governance structure, your board, your operating agreement, which really dictates who can own the center, how those ownership units are transferred back and forth, what happens in certain circumstances, what if you retire, what if you want to sell your ownership shares, how is your board makeup completed? That's covered under your operating agreement. And then syndication. So how do you craft the ownership proposition for your surgery center? How are you going to offer units? How are you going to value those units? Making sure that is done legally within safe harbor. Okay? And then we move to the design and development. Again, we act as a liaison between you, the owner, and the architect and the contractors. We use our experience to make sure that those things are guided the right way. Life safety and facility design. So surgery centers are one of the most highly regulated healthcare delivery platforms, so sometimes even more so than hospitals. And so there are FGI guidelines, there's ASC guidelines, there's all kinds of life safety guidelines that your facility has to meet. We make sure that your architect, your builder, and the design are supported with that. Construction bid and evaluation, and then ultimately what we get is what we call a certificate of occupancy. That certificate of occupancy is your state letting you know that you can now go into that building and start preparing it for patient care. And that's really the trigger for the next phase, which is operations preparation. So operations preparation is, again, there's lots of things listed there, but some of the key elements are payer contracting. We want to get that started early. Payer contracting for ambulatory surgery centers is much different than with your practice or what a hospital does. So we want to make sure that you have good guidance on how to do good payer contracting, licensing and accreditation with both the state and Medicare, rev cycle and business office. We want to make sure that those things are set up the right way. How you bill in an ASC is much different than how you bill in your practice. And so a lot of folks don't have good experience with that. So we want to make sure that we're supporting you in building that out the right way so that you can maximize the revenue that you're receiving. And then again, work stream design. How efficient is your surgery center? We're launching, again, making sure your staff is ready to deliver good clinical and good safe clinical care. We do that through a mock survey completion where we bring in experts, and just like Medicare or the state will do before you open, our team walks around and they look at your facility, they talk to your staff, they observe you doing a mock surgical case, and we want to identify any gaps in that delivery before the state and Medicare does. And that way we can address those and make sure you're fully prepared. And then really that's our navigation to that very first patient. And then ongoing optimization, we always think of it as a three-legged stool: clinical, financial, and regulatory compliance. So our experts make sure that you are maximizing all three of those elements.